If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Before Epstein was the Franklin cover-up. Before that, the Finders. And long before that, the Cleveland Street Scandal. Pedogate Primer is a concise intro and overview of a growing child abuse epidemic worldwide. It features shocking instances of institutionalized and organizational pedophilia throughout history. Churches, cults, the world of arts and entertainment, the government, NGOs, charities, and major corporations are all complicit or culprits in many instances. Pedogate Primer delves into material that for many may seem like the stuff of conspiracy theories. For this reason, the book draws on academic resources, declassified documents, and other reliable sources, and steers clear of conjecture. Such shocking true stories need no embellishment.
Emailrevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to emailrevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online. Email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Someone owe you money? Back child support? We can find that deadbeat, locate his hidden assets, locate his hidden bank accounts, find his current place of employment, and even assist you in obtaining a judgment and recover that judgment for you. Emailrevealer.com. Digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages, create a report that you can use in court. Emailrevealer.com, 800-572-9762.
A flooded home or business is never easy to deal with. You're left with a mess to clean up, having to deal with the insurance company to pay for the damages, not to mention the memories that are lost that you cannot replace. An Aquadam can be another tool in your arsenal to protect your home or business from the floodwaters, a hurricane storm surge, or the king tides. Give Aquadam a call at 707-764-2119 or look us up online at aquadam.net. We can help. We're also offering 10% off the price to anyone who mentions they heard this ad on the Opperman Report.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. You can go there to just email me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com if you need a PI. If you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon. I just put up some new content there yesterday. The indictment, the January 6th indictment against the Oath Keepers. But wait till you see what I got coming up on there. We've got a video of Matt Gaetz' buddy, Joel M. Steinberg, with a police video, body cam video. We're putting it up there for free in the Patreon. Fascinating material. If you like our show, be sure and check out our archives. You can find it at Spreaker.com. And I do a live show there every Friday night, exclusive for the Spreaker audience. You get an email notification anytime new content goes up. And there's a chat room where you can talk to other listeners. I'm really excited about today's guest. She's a Facebook friend for many years, Caitlin Rother. You can find her work at the CaitlinRother.com. New York Times bestselling author many times over. But the book we're talking about today is called Death on Ocean Boulevard, Inside the Coronado Mansion Case. And this is that case. That guy's like a billionaire. He had that beach house, and his girlfriend wound up with her hands taped and hanging from the balcony. I guess it was ruled a suicide. But Caitlin Rother, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you so much, because it was kind of like a little odd, last-minute thing. You commented on some post, and I said, who's this beautiful woman? I said, let me check out her page. Oh, my secrets are out. But tell us, who is Caitlin Rother?
Well, I wish I was a New York Times bestselling author many times over, but that's not exactly true. I am a New York Times bestselling author for one book in particular, but that was My Life Deleted, and it actually wasn't a true crime book. I just like to have full disclosure. But I was a newspaper reporter, an investigative reporter for almost 20 years. But I loved, reading true crime and, watching it on TV. And in those days, it was kind of a secret thing. You weren't allowed to talk about it because it was like a dirty secret. People were ashamed to like true crime, as opposed to now, where you can't get away from it. It's everywhere on TV and the movies. And so people have now admitted that they actually want to know about these people who do these things, and you don't understand how could they possibly do this to somebody else. So that's where I come in, and I say, okay, I don't want to glorify violence in any way. I, in fact, write about murder without even really writing about murder. I do the psychological aspect generally. And this book is a different book for me. I've got 14 books, and 11 of them are true crime books. And this one is considered a true crime book, but as you said, it was ruled a suicide by the Sheriff's Department. And this one's different for me also because it has a personal aspect. So she was found naked. Rebecca Zahau was found naked, hanging with her hands tied behind her back with rope. It was like a kind of a ski rope from the water skiing kind of a thing. Her ankles were bound together, and she was found hanging with all the same type of rope. She was found in an exterior courtyard in the back of this mansion. Jonah Shacknai was actually a millionaire. He laughed when I interviewed him. He said, somehow in this case I became a billionaire, but I'm actually only a millionaire. And it's the Spreckels Mansion. It's a historic landmark in Coronado here, which is right off the shore of San Diego County. It's part of San Diego County, but it's not part of the mainland. And my husband died by hanging.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. In 1999. And I know that he did this to himself. But this case, caught my attention for obvious reasons. It's a very difficult thing to go through when someone and you're close to dies and dies by hanging. And the thing about this case is it's a mystery. There's a lot of debate. Was she murdered or did she kill herself? So her family believes that she was murdered, and the Sheriff's Department said it was a suicide. So, like I said, it's a true crime book, but it's really, I just lay out all of the theories, all of the evidence, all of the information, all of the forensic evidence that was collected. There was also a civil trial, and so what came out of the trial. And so I don't take a position, and I don't take a position in any of my books, but this one's different because, like I said, it has a personal aspect, and it also doesn't really have a clear resolution because it's still ongoing. As a matter of fact, there's a lawsuit that the House family has filed against the Sheriff's Department, and I'm printing out, court papers, documents here as recently as last night because there was supposed to be a hearing in the next couple of days, and that's been postponed. So we can talk about that as well if you want, because there are ongoing developments even right now. It's not over.
So we can look forward to a Death on Ocean Boulevard Part 2. Right?
Well, as a matter of fact, it's been optioned for a limited series, and we were just talking, the producer and I'm an executive producer on this project. Because it's ongoing, there could be a second series. I don't know if there'll be a second book, but if it keeps going, I'll definitely update the book because there's, if there happens to be another trial, because the Zahau family is still pushing to get this case reopened as the criminal case. And the sheriff has announced he's retiring, so he's not going to be up for re-election. And one of the candidates who's running says if he wins, he's going to reopen the criminal case. So there's a lot of stuff still pending.
Real quick, how is this civil litigation going for the family? Have they had any success?
Well, I think they've had a success in so much as the judge did not dismiss it outright. Basically what they're doing, it's a public records lawsuit. So they've requested records that if I had asked for them as a journalist, they would have thrown it out, right? So they asked for these records, and the sheriff's department said, no, you can't have these. These are investigative records. They are protected under California law, which, in fact, so far is generally true. I can't tell you how many times I've had my request turned down. So, but this judge is entertaining this petition. So it's to me, it's a victory that it hasn't been thrown out, to be honest, and they're still pushing. They're trying to basically they're trying to show that there was some kind of internal, maybe there was some internal debate, that not everybody thought it was a suicide, that maybe some of the detectives, maybe there was discussion, but none of that was released to the public. And so what the Zahau family is trying to do is trying to find any kind of internal emails or notes or, discussions, roundtable discussion notes or anything like that, where they were discussing whether it might have been a murder, because so far all they've released supported their findings that it was a suicide. So, because the Zahaus believed that this was an incompetent and potentially corrupt investigation, flawed, And there are other people who, believe me, I had someone come up to me in Home Depot, and she said, "You have to show who bribed the sheriff." So there's a lot of public sentiment out there that they just don't buy the suicide thing. They just don't buy it. They say, look, a woman wouldn't do this to herself, and this woman in particular. And so there's a lot of disbelief. So
well, let's take a look at that, because this is more of a murder mystery. I guess a mystery, not a murder mystery, but more of a mystery, like you said, than a true crime story. So this Rebecca, and it's pronounced Zahau?
Zahau, yes.
Zahau. Okay, so what would be her motive to want to take her own life?
Well, I never met her. But I go into a lot of different things in the book about her. She was a troubled person. So, like I said, I'm not taking a position, but I'm going to go into some of the things that I uncovered in my investigation. So, she had an ex-boyfriend who I interviewed numerous times, who was also deposed in this case, and he said he met her. She said she was going through a divorce. She wasn't wearing a wedding ring. And, they started seeing each other. And, he was raised as a Mormon, and he's a religious guy, and he wants to, date somebody who's not with someone else, and certainly isn't married to someone else. And she lied to him. She said she was going through the divorce, just a matter of the paperwork going through. She was still living with her husband, and no papers had been filed. She ends up moving in with this guy, and then she disappears one day. She goes to work, and she doesn't come back. So he files a missing persons report. This is in Glendale, California. And she starts calling this guy and saying, they've got me. They've got something over my eyes. They've got me tied up in a car, and they're driving me around. He's like, where are you? And She's like, I don't know. And says, it sounds like you're in a bathroom, Well, yeah, they let me go to the bathroom, but they've got me, and, and she's crying. She wants to be with him. And, finally she says, well, it's her husband, and he's got her, and da-da-da. Anyway, she comes back. He goes, well, we're going to the police. She's like, I don't want to go to the police. And he says, no, we're going to the police. So they go to the police station. She goes off with a couple detectives, comes back half an hour later. Everything seems fine. He's like, okay, I want to talk to you too. And they're like, no, you can just go home. Turns out she told the detectives, well, I haven't told them yet that I'm leaving him. And she's going back to her husband. So she goes off. She never tells the boyfriend the truth. 17 years later, he doesn't find out that, that what happened, but she went back to her husband and never told him. So she basically has this, and this is a pattern for her. She just tells different stories to different people. She did it with Jonah, her boyfriend. She did it with her husband. She did it with this boyfriend. She has a lot of, she had a lot of issues. She was raised, had a difficult childhood. Her family were political refugees. She was born in Burma, which is now Myanmar, and her father was in prison, and they had to leave. So she ended up moving. They ended up moving to Germany. She went to Bible college. That's where she met her husband. So she comes from this very religious family, and they never had enough food. They were very poor. So she had, food issues. She was obsessed with working out. She was obsessed with her appearance. She was very health conscious. So she and Jonah used to work out and, eat very healthy food, but to a point of, that probably you and I wouldn't ever think about. So that, there was just a lot of things about her where, as the sheriff's department said, she was a troubled person. And they found notes on her phone where she was very angry at Jonah. She said she wasn't sleeping. She was crying all the time. She had lost a bunch of weight. So clearly she had some signs of depression, but she was never diagnosed. Her family said she was a happy person. She was a strong person. She was a religious person. She never would do this. But she showed them that side of her. She did not show that same side to other people. So I think that's one of the... And she was also, arrested for shoplifting. And she told Jonah one story, and what it says in the police report, which I have, is completely different. So again, she's telling people different stories. Along the way, she shows, one side of her to her family. She claimed her husband abused her physically and verbally, and that's why she left him. He says no. So, there's a lot of kind of red flags in her behavior. And so, I don't know exactly what would have been in her mind, but she did leave some, her behavior was not, didn't seem normal and healthy.
Well, let me ask you this, because there was an issue a couple of days before with an injury to Mr. Shacknai, to his son. So what was that? What's the nature of that?
Now, and that's what the sheriff's department said was her motive.
Right.
So, was guilt. Okay, so this little boy, 6 years old, Max Shacknai, they were very close, she and Max. She took care of him. And there was an incident, like her 13-year-old sister was visiting, and she was supposedly upstairs, the sister, and then Max was upstairs, also supposed to be cleaning his room, but we don't really know what he was doing. Rebecca was in the bathroom downstairs on the first floor, and she said she heard a crash and a dog barking. And she came out, and she found Max on the floor at the mansion, surrounded by broken pieces of the glass chandelier, which was on the floor next to him. There was a barking dog, there was a soccer ball, and a razor scooter. So she says, well, I didn't see what happened, but he was upstairs. And, she told her sister, call 911, and she said, I'm, start giving him CPR. So paramedics got there, and nobody saw her doing CPR, and you can hear on the 911 tape, she's crying out to her sister, to the dispatcher. She's just so upset. She's so distraught. She's crying. She's saying things. Anyway, long story short, the boy goes to the hospital. He's got a severe brain injury. They move him to a children's hospital. He's in the ICU. She's not allowed to see him because Jonah is worried there's going to be a scene between her and his ex-wife, Max's mother. They don't get along. They don't like each other. So she's the only adult in the house when he falls. If he fell, his mother is convinced that he was that this wasn't an accident. She believes he was killed, and not necessarily maliciously, but that it wasn't an accident, on his own, that he didn't die by his own hand.
Oh, the boy died.
No, I know, but not at his. She's saying he didn't die at his own hand, meaning that someone else was involved.
Okay, gotcha. I thought this was just I thought this was a serious injury.
She initially thought that Rebecca somehow was involved in his injury, in his fall. Gotcha. Even though no one saw it. Okay.
Quick question. Though. I know if he's 6 years old, he would have been in the first grade. Was he in the beginning of first grade or toward the middle, toward the end? Because you mature a lot in that year.
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Gotcha.
The point is, he's in the hospital. Rebecca isn't allowed to see him. Dina Shacknai, that's his mother, she's convinced that Rebecca must be at fault somehow. Dina has a sister, Nina, a fraternal twin sister, and they're all convinced that something happened, that, Rebecca knows something and she's just not saying. So everybody's trying to get her to say what happened. She keeps saying, I don't know. So anyway, that's 2 days before Rebecca is found dead. So, they believe, well, there must be more to what happened than she said, and she must feel guilty. She must have done something to him, or, they were playing, or something happened. They've never really been able to say exactly what happened, but the sheriff's department has a theory, which is that he was up there playing, either with the dog or with the ball and the scooter or whatever, because they were all found next to him on the below. So they think he, somehow got over the railing, grabbed a hold of the chandelier, and was swinging, and it broke because it's a very old house, and it was, built in 1908. So the chandelier was on a kind of a chain, and it was old, and with his weight crashed to the floor, and he landed. Rebecca couldn't remember if he landed face first or on his back, because she said she might have rolled him over to do the CPR. She doesn't remember. But anyway, he had bruising, pretty bad bruising all over his face and his head and all along his back. So the sheriffs ruled it a terrible accident.
Yeah, that's just horrific. Just the trauma alone could put somebody over the edge. But now the circumstances how she was found hanging, with her hands bound, was her mouth bound too as well?
There was a T-shirt wrapped around her neck and around her mouth like a gag in her mouth.
Okay, now, first...
Can you tell me how somebody does all that for themselves? That's what everyone wants to know. Okay, so she's got her hands tied behind her back. She's got her feet bound together, and she's somehow propelled herself over this metal railing with the gag in her mouth, and all of that. So people just don't buy it, So...
Well, I got to tell you, there's pictures of the BTK killer in the same situation, and they say, "Oh yeah, he took those pictures of himself. Yeah, he somehow figured out how to get himself in these bondage shots where he's all alone."
Well, yeah. There's also other theories. Yeah. There are other theories that I mean, look, clearly there's some kind of bondage involved here that somebody's not talking about. If somebody killed her, why did they kill her like that? And if she killed herself, why did she kill herself like that? There's a reason, right, that we don't know. There's some evidence that has not come out.
Okay, two questions. Now, have you seen photographs, like the crime scene photographs of the knots and the gag?
Yeah, and let me point out something.
Yeah.
When the police came, Adam Shacknai is the one who found her.
Right.
Okay. So Adam Shacknai was the only other known person on the property with her that night, the night before, okay? Because Jonah was at the hospital with the boy, okay? And there's a place for the parents to sleep at. It's not a hotel, but it's some sort of place that they can stay next door. So he was there, and there's surveillance footage of him going in and out. And there's a phone record of him calling Rebecca at 10 minutes to 1 in the morning. And so the other motive that the sheriff's department is saying is that he called Rebecca and said, this is according to him because there is no voicemail left. It was deleted. So this is, again, no proof of this. But Jonah said he left her a message where he was crying, and he said the doctor gave us some bad news, that the best case scenario is that Max will never walk or talk again. And so that's what the sheriff said. That put her over the edge, and then she decided to kill herself. So what I was going to say, though, is when Adam woke up the next morning, he said he pleasured himself to porno on his cell phone, took a shower, and then came out and found her hanging, but he cut her down, okay? So you can hear him on the 911 call cutting her down. He's grunting and cursing and panting, and he doesn't know the address to the house. He's got to run to the front of the house to look at the address. And so you hear all this on the 911 call. And so when they get there, she's not hanging. She's on the ground. So there are no pictures of her hanging, only of her tied up on the ground after he cut her down. So I just want to be clear about that. So, yes, I've seen pictures, but the only person who allegedly saw her hanging was Adam Shacknai.
Okay. Now, so from looking at these pictures, does it look like it's possible she could have tied herself up?
Well, the sheriff's department put together a video with one of their deputies, a female deputy, and she basically had her hands in front of her, and she, did some kind of knots, and then slipped one of her wrists out, put the other one behind her back, slipped the wrist back into the loops,
right,
and that's a slip knot. So she pulls it down with her hand and tightens it. So they showed how it could be done. Now, during the trial, the defense had an expert who was a knot expert, and he did what he claimed was a demonstration of how the knots were tied. And he did this based on, so when they did the autopsy, they removed the knots from her wrists and put them on cardboard tubes so that they could
preserve
them intact.
Yeah.
Preserve them and keep them intact so you could see how they were tied, supposedly. And he looked at the pictures, and he said that what they did in the sheriff's video was far too simplistic. Those were not the knots that she used, or that were used on her, rather, because he believed that she did not do that to herself, because the direction of the knots and the way that they were tied, he said, was done by someone else. And that how would she know how to do such incredibly intricate knots? Because when he did the demonstration, I was like, oh, my God, I would never be able to do that. And yet the defense said, oh, no, they're very simple knots. They're extremely simple knots. And even Adam, he told me this himself. He said, I really wish my attorneys hadn't said that, because I don't even know how to tie those knots, because they claimed he was responsible for her death, right? Mm-hmm. So that he's the one who did it.
Self-bondage is a thing, okay? It's a thing out there. People do it. They claim the BTA was doing it, right?
Yeah.
But now, does she have a history with knots and bondage and that kind of stuff?
According to everyone who knew her, no.
Okay.
However, like I said, somebody in this case has knowledge of those knots, okay? So, either somebody's not telling the truth, because Adam Shacknai says, "Oh, that's sexual." I looked online, and those are I forget what he's called, shibari, I think it's called, and it's like a Japanese art of self-tying. It's part sexual, erotica, art, etc. And so he's convinced that she somehow knew about this and she did that to herself.
But
So,
what kind of relationship did he have with her? Was this just like a first meeting?
Yeah. No, it wasn't first meeting, but he didn't really know her very well. I mean, They had met before, but he and his brother weren't very close. So the Zahau family has a whole. Their whole scenario was that, he's a sexual deviant, and he got into the house. He claimed he was in the guest house the whole time. She was in the main house. And so she was found, according to him, hanging from a balcony off the second or third floor bedroom. And he said, I spent the night in the guest house. But when he called the 911, he said, I got a girl hung herself in the guest house. That's how he started the 911 call.
Right.
So anyway, okay, tell me your question again. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent.
Well, real quick, we have to take a commercial break. But you're saying he stayed in the guest house and he claimed that I found a girl hanging hung herself in the guest house. But in reality, she was hanging off a porch facing the beach outside.
It's like a little balcony,
okay,
with a metal railing, and she was found hanging from that with this orange cord that was apparently kept in the garage. And so, yeah, he said he went to bed. She didn't want to talk. She wanted to go inside, and last he saw her was, 8-ish, I think it was about 8 o'clock, and he went into the guest house and called his girlfriend, and I can tell you about the whole scenario after the break because it's kind of long. So
okay, good. I'd say it. Fascinating story here. You got to get this book, Death on Ocean Boulevard: Inside the Coronado Mansion Case. And our guest here, Caitlin Rother, is telling us that there's going to be a TV production about this, and like a TV series. You can keep an eye on that and upcoming events on CaitlinRother.com. Caitlin, I forgot to ask you, do you have any upcoming book signing events or anything you want to promote?
I'm stuck in the house here.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to get sick. So
really? Why is that, Caitlin?
I don't know. There's some little bug out there trying to get people.
I'm still asking the same questions from 3 years ago, so just told my guests. You got any appearances? All right, let's take a little commercial break. We'll be right back with more of Caitlin with a C, Rother, ROTHER.com. And the book, once again, is Death on Ocean Boulevard: Inside the Coronado Mansion Case. There's so much I'm hearing about this that I didn't. And I usually watch those tabloid TV shows about these sensational cases. We'll be right back with more of Caitlin Rother after these messages.
And now a word from our sponsors.
A flooded home or business is never easy to deal with. You're left with a mess to clean up, having to deal with the insurance company to pay for the damages, not to mention the memories that are lost that you cannot replace. An Aquadam can be another tool in your arsenal to protect your home or business from the floodwaters, a hurricane storm surge, or the king tides. Give Aquadam a call at 707-764-2119 or look us up online at aquadam.net. We can help. We're also offering 10% off the price to anyone who mentions they heard this ad on the Opperman Report.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. Thank you so much for listening to the Opperman Report. I want to welcome all our new listeners at WWPR 1490 AM in the Tampa Bay area. We're brand new down here. We're getting a nice warm welcome. We have great advertising opportunities for local sponsors, local businesses, but also international websites and international companies too on our other stations in California, Nevada, Utah, and on the internet worldwide. But down here in Tampa Bay, Florida, we have some great opportunities for you to come in and get very, very affordable advertising rates. Get a hold of me at oppermanreport@gmail.com and we'll cut you a good deal.
Before Epstein was the Franklin cover-up. Before that, the Finders. And long before that, the Cleveland street scandal. Pedogate Primer is a concise intro and overview of a growing child abuse epidemic worldwide. It features shocking instances of institutionalized and organizational pedophilia throughout history. Churches, cults, the world of arts and entertainment, the government, NGOs, charities, and major corporations are all complicit or culprits in many instances. Pedogate Primer delves into material that for many may seem like the stuff of conspiracy theories. For this reason, the book draws on academic resources, declassified documents, and other reliable sources, and steers clear of conjecture. Such shocking true stories need no embellishment.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Opperman Report. We're talking to our guest here, Caitlin Rother, and before she was saying about how, we were just talking about how she lost her husband, God bless his soul. But when you have a recent death, and I got to tell the audience, we just lost Hank Harrison last night. Just heard from his wife that he passed in his sleep. She said it was very peaceful. You know Hank Harrison, the father of Courtney Love?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Me and Hank had become good friends. I'd been to his houses.
Oh, wow. Sorry to hear that.
I know, me too. We never had a bad, even when I was yelling at him, we never had a bad time together, me and Hank. But we're with Caitlin Rother, and we're talking about her book, Death on Ocean Boulevard, Inside the Coronado Mansion Case. Now, real quick, as far as Adam and Jonah, do we have any information from past girlfriends or saying, hey, man, they tied me up, too, and they told me to stand right by that relic? Anything like that?
That's what I'm saying. Everybody's like, oh, I don't know I don't know anything about knots. No, we never talked about bondage. I asked Jonah. I said, look, your brother seems to think it's shibari. I mean, did you and Rebecca, do anything watch any movies or, did you have any of this in your private life? He said, no, not with me. That's what he said. I said, okay, well, had to ask, right? So, I mean, I just think somebody's not being forthcoming. That's what I think.
Now, what about the demeanor of both Adam and Jonah in the aftermath of this?
Well, Adam right away said he thought it was a suicide. And, right away. I mean, I don't know how he would know that, especially, I don't know. That raised a lot of questions for people. How would he know it was a suicide right away? Why would he think that when she was tied up that way? Because when the Coronado police came, they immediately thought it was suspicious. They called in the sheriff's homicide unit, and they thought it was suspicious. Because, you don't have you ever heard of a woman tying herself up naked, outdoors, like this?
No, I
right?
wouldn't stay. I wouldn't call the police from there. I would leave. If I woke up and I saw someone tied up and hanging from a rope, I'm not going to start cutting them down or calling the police from that location. No. I'm going to get the hell out of there.
Well, he claimed he thought maybe he could save her life. He said, this is exactly what he said. He goes, look, I didn't know, because she's Asian, I couldn't tell, if she was like the wrong color or whatever. So I cut her down, and maybe he thought he could save her life if she was still alive. That's what he said. So they told him to start doing CPR, and he said he was already doing it. But you can hear on the tape he's out of breath, he's grunting, and why did you do this to yourself? And and he's cursing a lot. And then they said, well, you can get her, get her on her back and this and that. But when you see the pictures, she's got her hands tied behind her back, so it's really not a good position for you to be doing chest compressions. It doesn't. She's like twisted, and she's kind of, got her knees and ankles are at like a 90-degree angle. So she's sort of on the side of her knees as they're bent, you know what I mean? And then she's kind of twisted a little bit. So anyway, a lot of it just doesn't make sense. So that's why I haven't taken a position, because honestly, the suicide scenario, there's a lot of forensic questions. So we didn't talk about any of this. I'll just run through it real quick. But okay. There were 4 bruises, hemorrhages on her scalp. And so Sarah Wecht, who testified for the plaintiff, the Zahau's, he thinks she was murdered, and like she was hit over her head and then manually strangled before she was lowered somehow over the balcony. Her neck was not seriously injured, and this has some parallels with the Jeffrey Epstein thing, because similar injuries to the neck. So, even though the authorities said, oh no, Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, just like in this case, his brother didn't believe it and called in another pathologist who said, generally these type of injuries don't come from, hanging yourself. They come from being strangled. And the same thing with Rebecca. So she did not have a broken neck. She had fractured cartilages. So if you're going to throw yourself over a balcony 9 feet 2 inches, he and another person testified that, why wasn't she decapitated or partially or completely decapitated? I mean, that's it's called a long drop. So there's a number of things that just physically just don't make sense to me or to a lot of other people. And by the same token, I also see that she was very troubled, and I can also see there were reasons why she might have, killed herself. So I just don't think we have enough information for me, for sure, to say either way. So I still think we need more investigation, and there are questions that remain unanswered, and we may never get them answered. And like I said, this bondage thing is one of the primary questions. Maybe nobody asked the right questions, but, Adam did a lie detector test, polygraph, and it was supposedly inconclusive, but the sheriff's examiner decided he was telling the truth. Other experts have looked at the same test results and said, no, he's clearly deceptive. So there's so much back and forth. Civil jury said they thought he was responsible for her death. He says, no, I didn't do it. I had no reason to do it.
But there was a civil jury did say that there was a settlement.
There was a settlement, and
okay.
It was a small settlement, but it was against Adam's wishes. The Zahau's, they wanted him to somehow admit. He won't admit, and his insurance company is the one that settled. He didn't want to settle.
Now, real quick. Now, the noose around her neck, was this like the classic hangman's noose, or that was some kind of a unusual type of a noose?
It was a slip knot.
See? Yeah.
I don't really know a lot about various nooses. I just watched the demonstration in the courtroom. Keith Greer, who was the Zahau's attorney, fought very hard, and the defense fought very hard against this, to use a mannequin. And it was a very, very dramatic part of the courtroom scene, honestly, because he had a sex doll essentially made to look just like Rebecca. He bought a sex doll that was custom made. Had fingernails and toenails painted the same colors that were in the autopsy report. Long hair, had the abrasions and various other bruising on her neck and other places. There was black paint found on her body, on her breasts, all of which he said pointed to, somebody. There was a note on the door, by the way, on the bedroom door. She saved him. Can you save her? No punctuation. And so it was painted with black paint, and there was black paint found on her nipples. And so Keith Greer said, well, clearly this Adam Shacknai is some sexual deviant. He was, pinching her nipples. He penetrated her with the handle of this steak knife that was found on the floor because there's red stains found on the handle of the knife, as if, he assaulted her with it. He came into the house, saw her showering. There was some kind of confrontation in the hallway on the other side of the house where her towel was found, and there were some drops of blood on the carpet. She was having her period, and but there was some confrontation in the hallway there where those drops fell. And then, according to the Zahaus, there was this confrontation. There was a tussle. She screamed for help because a neighbor said that she heard a woman screaming for help. And he must have hit her over the head 4 times, got her unconscious, tied her up, and she tried to get to escape, but he basically strangled her and put her over the thing. Over the railing.
The neighbors heard these screams the previous night or the next day?
Well, she was found. Adam called 911 at 6:48 a.m. The call from Jonah was at 12:50 a.m., so it had to be sometime in there. And the woman who lives 2 doors down said she heard a woman screaming for help at about 11:30 p.m., which makes no sense in the whole thing because, well, I can't say it makes no sense, but she was basically dismissed by the sheriff's department as an unreliable witness because she changed her story about where the noise came from, and seems like they didn't really believe that based on where she was in her house that she could have heard the sound from the rear courtyard of the house 2 doors down because she was in the front of the house. Anyway, they just dismissed her and that. But there was a witness who claimed that she heard that.
Now, did you have an opportunity to speak to that witness?
No, she did not want to come to court. The judge got her on the speakerphone, and she just was in no mental shape. She was crying. She says, I have fibromyalgia. I'm in a lot of pain. I just can't face it. I can't come in. So there were witness interviews that I got from the police investigative reports, and also there was a deposition that they showed in court also. And you could, she was an older woman. She did change her story, but investigative reports aren't always accurate.
Right.
So.
Yeah, right. People only know.
They are.
And even the ones I write myself, I have errors. The ones you write on your own reports. Real quick though, you mentioned there was there was some traces of red on a knife handle. Any DNA testing done on this material?
It was her blood.
Okay, we know that's her blood. Okay.
They didn't do DNA testing, but they know it was her blood.
Right. And
actually, I'm sorry. There was DNA testing. They don't know whether it was menstrual blood.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's what they didn't test for.
Okay.
But they did do a measurement. They did oral swabs, and supposedly, according to one of the sheriff's crime lab experts, the amount of DNA on that knife handle, if it had been inserted into her vagina, should have had a lot more DNA on it, a lot more cells, because there's a lot of them in your mouth and there's a lot of them in your vagina, more so than from other areas of your body, and there weren't on the knife. The level was not high like it would have been if it had been inserted.
Right, and it's okay. So now, if there's traces of this material on the knife, were there traces on her hands as well?
There was there was blood on her leg, and there was blood on her toes, and there was either a rope burn or some kind of cut on one of her fingers. So, it didn't look like there was no bleeding per se anywhere. There was no wound that was bleeding profusely that would have gotten it all over the knife handle. So, but then, I interviewed the woman who did the testing. Unfortunately, not until after the book was done, because I've gotten to know her. But she said that wound on her hand, which she did not testify to, but it was oozing So it was still wet, I guess, even though she was dead. But, you know, when you think about it, when you have a cut on your hand, when it's oozing, it's not like bleeding.
Right.
And she's dead, right? Her heart's not going. So it wasn't like, and there's pictures, you know, it didn't look like a bloody gash or anything, you know.
And I suppose
anyway,
the theory is she had this knife because she was cutting the rope that she was tying herself up with?
Yes. Well, there were two knives. There was a bigger knife, and it had some weird pattern of her fingerprints on the blade, which is what they said, oh, well, she was trying to free herself. So she turned around and was cutting herself, trying to cut herself free. That was the Zahau's interpretation. Anyway, I'm not here to analyze the evidence per se. I can just tell you that it doesn't, you know, there are issues with that whole scenario, and there are issues with the sheriff's scenario too. You know?
Well, it's just everything that brings up another question. Yeah, another question comes up.
I know.
Everything you say. Now,
well, and so I just want to I want to just add something that I didn't mention before, but I have I saw some parallels in the behavior. Back, you asked me about Rebecca, and we were talking about how I thought she was troubled. During my investigation, and I did all these interviews with her, you know, her ex-boyfriend, and I did 8 interviews, about 2 hours each, with Jonah Shacknai, right? After I thought I had finished the book already, that's when I finally was able to reach him. I had to redo a whole lot of the book at the very end. I just saw a lot of parallels in the behaviors between my husband and her. And my husband was diagnosed as a borderline personality, which I did not know when I married him. But when we were in marriage counseling, the counselor pulled me aside and told me that. And so if you look it up, it's a pretty scary set of behaviors. But among them are acting out sexually and lying and stealing, substance abuse, this and that. Now, Rebecca was never diagnosed with any mental illness. She was never diagnosed with any depression or anything. So I am not trying to diagnose her. I am just saying, based on my investigation, I did see some parallels in their behavior. My husband was also, coincidentally, which is really weird, was also arrested for shoplifting in Phoenix, just like Rebecca. They both went through the same diversion program. It was a little too much for coincidence, you know, sometimes for me going through this whole process. So I have written a short memoir, which has a lot more information about, you know, my insights, my experience, and what I brought to bear to tell this story. It's called Secrets, Lies, and Shoelaces. It's available on Amazon. It's a short read. You can do it in one sitting.
And you wrote that after this one or before?
No, I wrote it before, actually.
Okay.
I wrote it after I sat through the trial. I was finally able, after 19 years, to finally, you know, get closure on my own personal situation, because I watched this trial and I sat there and I listened to the psychiatrist talk about all the risk factors that he thought made it clear to him in his assessment that she, you know, killed herself.
Like I said, I have so many questions. I could keep you on the phone here forever, but I'm serious. I want to ask about details about the shoplifting, but we have no time. We've been talking to Caitlin Rother. You can go to CaitlinRother.com and find a list of all her books. She has 14 books, and I know a lot of them are right up the alley of our guest here. She wrote a book about Charles Manson, too, so I know you guys are into that. Death on Ocean Boulevard is this incredibly mysterious case about this woman found hanging, bound and gagged inside the Coronado Mansion case by Caitlin Rother. Caitlin, thank you so much. You got an open invitation. Anytime you want to come back and update us on this or any of your other books, please let us know.
Great.
Oh, no, thank you.
I'd love to.
This is great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good night.
Good night.
And now a word from our sponsors, emailrevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey, Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to emailrevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online. Email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Someone owe you money? Back child support? We can find that deadbeat. Locate his hidden assets. Locate his hidden bank accounts. find his current place of employment, and even assist you in obtaining a judgment and recover that judgment for you. Emailrevealer.com, digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages, create a report that you can use in court. Emailrevealer.com, 800-572-9762.
A flooded home or business is never easy to deal with. You're left with a mess to clean up, having to deal with the insurance company to pay for the damages, not to mention the memories that are lost that you cannot replace. An aquadam can be another tool in your arsenal to protect your home or business from the floodwaters, a hurricane storm surge, or the king tides. Give Aquadam a call at 707-764-2119 or look us up online at aquadam.net. We can help. We're also offering 10% off the price to anyone who mentions they heard this ad on the Opperman Report.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents, they handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. Hey, if you have something you want to promote, like a business or a website, you got a big event coming up, consider advertising on the Opperman Report. We have excellent advertising rates for you. We're on KCAA on 3 different frequencies on AM/FM in California, KSHP 1400 AM in Nevada, WWPR in Florida, the Tampa Bay area, 1490 AM, and also WWNN, which is on the east coast of Florida, all the way from Miami up to Port Bay, with 175 miles of I-95. The advertising rates are very affordable. Once your ad goes up and we play the show on the podcast and on the YouTube channel, those ads stay up there forever. And then we play repeats every single night of classic Opperman Report shows. And your new ads will be inserted into those repeats that play every single night. So the saturation is incredible, and the rates are very affordable. Contact me at oppermanreport@gmail.com.
Before Epstein was the Franklin cover-up. Before that, the Finders. And long before that, the Cleveland street scandal. Pedogate Primer is a concise intro and overview of a growing child abuse epidemic worldwide. It features shocking instances of institutionalized and organizational pedophilia throughout history. Churches, cults, the world of arts and entertainment, the government, NGOs, charities, and major corporations are all complicit or culprits in many instances. Pedogate Primer delves into material that for many may seem like the stuff of conspiracy theories. For this reason, the book draws on academic resources, declassified documents, and other reliable sources, and steers clear of conjecture. Such shocking true stories need no embellishment.
Hey guys, if you like the show and you want to show your support, check out the Opperman Report Patreon. You can go there for $3 a month. We have all the shows that you hear Monday through Friday on AM/FM radio, but we cut out the ads, so you can hear that content ad-free. There's a $5 section where we put up all the old member section shows are going up over there. And then there's a $10 section where we have 8 hours of exclusive content per month in the $10 section. But listen, I put up a lot of free stuff too. Documents, court documents, photographs, announcements. So you should make the Opperman Report Patreon. You should stop there once a day and check out what's going on over there. That's Opperman Report Patreon.